Used to only being shown when I'm talking so I can pick my nose when the other guy's talking.
There you go. And we're live.
And were we live during that comment?
Of course we were. On this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast Live, I am joined remotely with Jeff Stearns, the man, the myth, the legend, the sales god. We're going to be talking about the car business, podcasting, and a whole lot more. All that and more on this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast Live. Welcome in to another live episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast. With me today remotely is Jeff Stearns. How you doing, Jeff?
Feeling very relaxed about it, Dave. How do I look?
Yeah. I tell you, doing it live is, it's interesting, right? We had a little fun intro for everybody that might be watching right now. Maybe we'll edit that out maybe we'll leave it in.
Well, Dave, it's a little nerve-wracking because I'm used to doing my podcast recorded conversations on Zoom, and it shows the person that's talking in the middle of the screen. So normally the person I'm talking to goes on 5 or 10 minutes and I can, clean my nose.
Do whatever you need to. Yep.
Yeah, and now we're side by side, and I'm thinking I'm going to get a nose itch.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? So we're talking today about podcasting. We're talking about the car business. One of the reasons we get to talk about both of those things is, of course, the Modern Dealer Podcast, something that I've been doing for about a year and a half, with my old guest star. Now I got a new guest star in Jeff Stearns.
And I'm so proud of you because that Bertoncini, I never liked him, all jacked up and the pre-workout drinks, and it's so important what he's drinking and the socks. And, I used to forward through his part. So thank God you got rid of him permanently.
Fast forward. Permanently? Just kidding. No, this is an extra special episode. We love our David Bertoncini. But anyways, a year and a half or so, we've been doing a podcast. I've known you probably 10, 12, 14 years. We have shared history going back decades. But you've recently started your own podcast, Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars. You've had some just absolutely incredible legends on your podcast. So we're going to be talking about the car business. We're going to be talking about podcasts on this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast Live.
Well, it's a fun topic, and a number of people inspired me to do it, but I never missed an episode of Modern Dealer. And when I visited you at the office and saw your setup and saw how much fun it is, I thought, and I'm not handy, I'm not technical. I thought, okay, this would be fun if I could just do the talking part. And you for sure, you were an amazing support getting me through the lighting and the wiring and the camera and the microphone and the whatever. So, but let's face it, the reason we do it is a little bit of passion. To me, Jeff Stearns Connected Through Cars has given me the chance to pick up the phone and call people that I haven't talked to in 5 to 20 years. And I'm not, as a car guy, I'm not going to act like I'm the best at maintaining relationships. I think I'm a good friend. You call me for something, I'm there, no question. But I was a retail guy for 27 years now, doing CarChat24 for 8 years. So I work a hectic pace. And like a lot of you retail guys, you're not so good at picking up the phone, just calling friends to say hi. So for me, an exercise to ring someone up and say, here's what I'm doing, and by the way, hello, for them to be excited about it is so darn validating. And then the conversation is authentic, and we're just recording it, and it's a beautiful catch-up session. But Dave, let's be honest. It's really about getting known and fleshing out as human. Yep. So someone will come buy our stuff over at Entice or CarChat. So, come on, guys. How about
what's
some
great about that?
Leads?
Yeah, inbound leads, absolutely. And so we talk about marketing in the 21st century. One of my favorite humans on the planet right now is Gary Vaynerchuk. I've been listening to what he's been preaching. I would say I was exposed to him 2013, 2014. So I've been an advocate, a fan of what Gary Vaynerchuk's been doing for the last almost 10 years. I've read all of his books, and what one of his main topics is utilizing content as a way to market yourself, market your business. And so marketing in the 21st century really is about creating content. Marketing in 2021 is really about creating organic live content to create a following, to create advertisements. And this really is kind of combines a lot of passions for me and kind of bring them all together. I love podcasts. There's a few podcasts that I listen to religiously, and be able to bring in marketing, bring in the car business, bring in people that I've been associated with, and bring them on as guests like I've been able to do with you today. I mean, it really is just fantastic. Super fun to be able to do this.
And I'm proud of you for finally getting me.
Yeah, exactly. I've been asking and asking and asking.
Now, Dave, do I look blurry on this thing?
No, I don't think so. So we're talking podcasting a little bit here. So let's talk a little bit about the setup that we have here. So from a technology standpoint, of course, we're using a DSLR camera. So I have pointing in front of me here. You have the same thing over there. I'm running it through an ATEM Mini, which gives me the ability to have multiple camera angles, which we'll go through them in a minute. But also, I'm utilizing Ecamm Live as a software solution. So I think what you might be seeing on your end is a little blurriness, but what I'm getting on my side into the Ecamm Live is very clear. It looks very nice. So it may be just a monitoring on your side that you're not getting that nice clear. But really, I mean, look who you're next to.
I was going to say that, I mean, let's face it. And I actually prefer a little bit of an opaque window or mirror to look at myself through anyway, for the wrinkles, for the blotchiness.
Right.
So I shouldn't kvetch. I mean, really, look how young I look. Now, Garyvee, I'm glad you mentioned him. That was also an inspiration watching some of Garyvee, because when I was nervous to get started, I don't have my perfection. I don't have the perfect camera. Oh, it doesn't look good. Oh, it doesn't sound good. What if I don't know how to host, whatever it is? What if I don't know how to edit, which I don't? I have a guy doing it.
Right.
He kept saying, just put your content out there. Don't worry about perfection. Just put it out there. And a number of them did. And I went that way. And he started, I think, taking his family's liquor store online right when it all started. And so the thing I love about him is he isn't one of these motivational wealth gurus that got wealthy by being motivational. He actually was a businessman first and then shares. And I appreciate that. But, I was thinking about our good friend and your past guest on here, Jay Smithwick, who owns Auto Exact, who takes pictures of the cars.
Yep.
And owns 360 Booth. And my dealership was customer number 001 at Auto Exact. Let's just let the record state that.
Yep. So you put him on the map.
It's all because of me.
It's all Jeff.
If you trace everything and everyone that I've touched back to the beginnings, you could pretty much take it down to I got them going, that it's all because of me. Yeah. Or at least I can, as I'm the star of my own movie. But Jay had a product back when we were working on Dealer Mouth that you might remember from
Sure. Yep.
09. I sound like a grandpa story. Back in 09.
Back in 09.
That's right. With crank start cars. But Jay had another product we were talking about on the phone the other day that we probably should have got going with, called organic video. Are you familiar with that?
Nope, not familiar with that one. But I do remember talking to him back in 2011, 2012, and he was all in on digital video and utilizing it in different and creative ways.
Well, he had an idea where he was going into dealerships because people doing it on their phone and just uploading it to YouTube wasn't so obvious. And this was around the same time. This was 09, 10, where Jay would go into dealerships with a camera and have the salesperson make a 1 minute walk around piece on a car, just 1 minute or something else interesting, and put it up. And he could show that for indexing, that if you put it up on Google, or forgive me, YouTube, and then searched a word, you could find it in the same couple of minutes. So it was amazingly quick, and he was putting up content. And when I think of Garyvee and I think of Jay doing that, I'm thinking really one of the things Garyvee had behind him was just all of the time.
Yeah,
and all the content
absolutely. So
went up.
Yeah. So Gary Vaynerchuk, immigrant story, his dad and him, he moved here from Belarus. He was 8 or 10 years old. His dad started working in a liquor store, built it up to a very successful shop. Gary, when the internet came out, right, he took that business, Wine Library, and created one of the very first long-form YouTube shows. And then there was Wine Library TV, and then he's just been, just knuckling it every single day, fighting it out, and it's really over the last 20 years just built an incredible empire, and really is the digital marketing guru. And actually, I think speaking about the Super Bowl, which just happened this last weekend here in Tampa, his company VaynerMedia just created its first Super Bowl commercial for, I think, True Green, which I haven't even seen yet. But yeah, pretty exciting stuff. I do want to pick up real quick on Gary Vayner, or on Mr. Smithwick, and so I don't know when he actually started, when you did business with him for the very first time, but I remember my real last retail experience when I opened up an open point toy dealership in the Tampa market here. I hired Jay in his company for taking photos, and that would have been 2006, 2005, 2006.
Oh, it was already passé by then. I was like 99. And
99.
And I had Jay as a guest on my show, and we talked about that. When he came to me, he says, "Hey Jeff, listen, for 500, I want to give you this just for an idea." And I think he still had another job or something. I have this idea. If I could put your cars, your inventory on your website.
Revolutionary.
And I want you to stop and think. Now, remember, we'd only had a website for a couple of years. And I remember we went through 6 months of dealership meetings. Because I think the website, the first round was like 40 G's. And was it a fad or not? I mean, do we want to get a website, which was just some other ad medium to us at the time? So he goes, if I could put your cars, all of your used cars, on your website for $500 a month, would that be interesting to you? And the only thing that got me in, this is total truth, the only thing that got me in is I was running a Cadillac Land Rover store that also had a Rolls Bentley franchise and Lotus franchise. And whenever a pre-owned exotic car came in, a Rolls Bentley, used for our, whatever, would come in, I would go outside, because I'm so artistic, and put it under the tree for glare and take a whole bunch of great shots of it and run up to the drugstore and get 5 pictures of each angle and bring it back, because I knew that my DuPont registry ad was coming out soon, or my Auto Week classified was coming out soon. And I'd get calls about certain cars, and I'd have them in a card file by make. And then I could take the hood, the trunk, the side, the this, the that, not as many pictures as people take online now, but let's say a dozen shots of a car, and I'd throw them in a FedEx envelope. So I used to say to myself, I'm spending $200-300 a month developing pictures. Now I can imagine, Dave, if you have your typical internet manager listening to this is like 23. They don't even know who Ronald frickin' Reagan is, and they're listening to this story. I'm so frickin' old. I started selling cars. I'm reminded
of it every single day.
Well, in my teens, when I started selling cars, when I got my first franchise store when I was 21, I remember telling people that someday I'll be like your life insurance salesman. I'll be selling you and your kids and your grandkids. And I really did start selling people's kids and grandkids, and it just killed me, because you never think that day's coming.
That's really ever going to come true. Yep.
Yeah. So young kids, you better live it up. So I'm developing pictures for $200-300 a month, and I'm spending $100 or $200 or $300 on FedEx a month. Now, I wasn't going to be able to get rid of that expense because not everyone had internet, not everyone had an email
I know.
to send
Yeah.
pictures to. But the kicker was, well, with the Cadillac and Land Rover inventory, if we stick that on, because we were never taking a picture of those, Jay, I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try for the nickel. So that was,
Yeah.
and
It
Jace,
really, as I say, it
ahead.
really is amazing that we think about how the car business was in the 90s, going through the internet revolution that we've been through. I think it's one of the coolest thing about this podcast, the Modern Dealer podcast, is to be able to explore the difference of what it was before the internet, what it was like selling cars before the internet was even a thing, and then all of the things that we kind of take for granted now on how to utilize the internet to market a car dealership. So, and then talking about Jay and how forward thinking he was back then, just taking photos to get online and then going through the mechanisms to be able to get that done. And then to be able to see, you know what, all of these photos, no matter how well I train my photographers to take it, no matter what the quality of the camera that we use, they still look like shit. And to be able to go, you know what would be cool is to be able to create a studio that has beautiful lights, and then you drive the car into those studios to take the picture, so you can get, a beauty shot of every vehicle, and then to be able to go out and build that, and now to have 1,000 installs around the world. It's a great story.
Incredible. And by the way, I know I'm not Bertoncini, but are you going to ask me what I'm drinking?
And what are you drinking? What do you got going on? So I have coffee of the day today is my dark roast Sumatra. I got a nice fresh cup before we clicked on live today. What do you got going on there, Jeff?
One of my developers' names is Sumatra, but I'm drinking Tarpon Springs Tap. My
Nice.
mercury levels, my lead levels should be good by the end of the day.
Yeah. That's funny. I was yeah. I was, so we, having the Super Bowl right here. I was watching some news channels on the day of the Super Bowl, the weekend of the Super Bowl, and they're highlighting different areas around the Tampa Bay area, and they did a nice little a little vignette about Tarpon Springs and the history and, the Greek heritage and the sponge docks and everything else. And I don't know if you knew this, but I lived right around the corner from where your office is, right down Mears Boulevard off of A19 for about 5 years.
I didn't know that, Dave.
Long time ago, yeah.
But hopefully our listening audience is all over the United States, Canada, and the world. Hopefully, and they'll say, why are they talking about Mears Boulevard in Tarpon Springs? But they should know that Tarpon Springs is the #1 per capita non-English speaking Greek community in the United States.
There you go. And for that reason, it needs to be on the Modern Dealer podcast.
there you go. That's the part of town you need to go to for a lamb chop, a gyro, a souvlaki, and to look for a lot of black DeVilles.
It's a great area. I loved it. I love Sponge Docks. Very cool. Very, very cool history. Love living there. I don't live too far from you now. We are north of Tampa in the Wesley Chapel area. That's where we have our office now. But anyways, I digress. So today we were talking about the car business, podcasting, and a whole lot more. One of the things that we like to do on the Modern Dealer podcast when we have anybody as a guest, I always like to find out what their origin story is. So the way that I like to look at the origin story, since this is the Modern Dealer podcast, is tell me how you got into the car business and tell our listeners what that story is. Because I always find them fascinating how people find the car business and end up sticking with it for decades, like I have, and you.
Well, and I was a boss for about 20 years in retail, and honestly, one of the things that frustrated me was the people that looked at it as a flyover job, like just something to do until they figure out what they're going to do or while they're on the way to the next thing. I went into the car business with intention, and I actually went into it against my father's wishes. My dad was an independent dealer in Detroit. And it was very, very fun going to work with my dad. I can remember starting at about age 8. I'd go to work with him on the weekend. And I'm not going to sit here and give you a story and tell you I was washing cars at age 8, but I was like killing the batteries in the cars, honking the horns. I remember he would let me know how many he had to jump, especially like he had a lot of antique stuff like 1938 Oakland, and he had Model A's and 48 Bentley and et cetera. So, the Ooga horns and that sort of thing, or I'd play with the flip out turn signal and the B pillar of a 40s Bentley, et cetera. He actually had the Bonnie and Clyde car with the bullet holes from the movie. He had the Superfly car. I mean, we had some cool cars. He used to loan cars to the city of Detroit for 4th of July parade. We could ride in the rumble seat of the Model A that was in the parade and that sort of thing. So to me, I mean, you may find it hard to believe. I like to talk, and I love cars. By the time I was a teenager, I think I was getting 8 or 10 car magazines, and I still did until probably the last 10 years, and 2 or 3 of them weekly, and would read them cover to cover. So my dad was a dealer. My dad sold a lot in the late 70s to ensure that my little brother and I would not go into the business, and we would become real citizens like a veterinarian or a CPA or something like that. But he started in the mid 60s. He's dealing with all the used car managers in the 60s and early 70s up and down the street. So he saw a lot of gambling issues and alcoholism and 27 marriages and all of that stuff. So he was a great car guy. He was not traditional at all. He would in the summer in Michigan, he'd like lay on and I heard this story from 100 people, so I know it's true. Customers, friends. He'd lay on the hood of a car with his shirt off. Of course, it's Michigan summer, right? And when people would come to look at a car, he told them where the keys were. And if they wanted a car, he wouldn't take a deposit. But he was from the neighborhood. So if somebody backed up on a deal, they'd have like no credit at the bookie, no credit at the bar, no credit at the orthodontist, whatever. I mean, it was real old school. So I grew up with a very, very strong handshake ethic. But what's funny is why he got out of the business is my folks were divorced when I was young, and they were in a custody battle for 6 years, a 6-year court case, which I couldn't even imagine. Yeah. And my mother's still alive, and my dad won, but she did nothing wrong. So, but my dad in the state of Michigan, just in the University of Michigan law school precedent, they study it actually. My dad was the first father to get custody without an unfit mother in Michigan. And again, he just won. I don't even know. There may have even been a bag of money about, I don't even know, because my mother did nothing wrong. But what was interesting is his attorney, who I still know, told my dad, you're never going to get the kids. You're never going to win as a car dealer, that you're in an unsavory business. So my dad had a friend, this is 77-ish, 78 with a nightclub in Ottawa, Canada, who bought part of the dance floor from the movie set of Saturday Night Fever, and it was called the Studio 54 of Canada, where they'd go out and pick out who can come in and all of that business. And my dad sells his lot and goes up there to Ottawa as his general manager of this disco, and that's how he was able to be good enough in business to have custody of boys alone. That's how the car business was viewed by the judge in 77, 78.
That's amazing. You know what's so crazy too, and another kind of recurring topic that we have on the Modern Dealer podcast, and that is the reputation of salespeople and the stereotypes that people have about the car business and people in the car business. And we look back at the 70s, and actually I think just looking at
is that
what
Kurt
this
Russell?
Used to, yeah. what this used to look like.
What's your name? Kowalski? My name's Kaczynski. You need a Buick Centurion convertible.
Exactly.
Not only by murdering high prices, but by blowing the living shit out of high prices. Yes, sir, you heard me right. Now, here's an example. 1973 Cadillac Coupe de Ville for $62.99. That price is too high.
So that is what we're dealing with from a stereotype standpoint, and what people think about people in the car business. And
Well, it's a shame because
it's
that stuff is what made me want to get in it. But go ahead.
well, what's crazy is that this isn't something that has gone away 20 years ago. It didn't go away in the last decade. It still persists today. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the Vroom Super Bowl TV commercial. It's horrible. It's perpetuating this negative stereotype of what it's like to go into a dealership. Now, I never had the opportunity to work in a Highline store like Rolls, Bentley, that type of experience. But those facilities, those vehicles, I mean, it's a beautiful facility. And whether it's Highline or it's, tier one imports, the facilities and the people that's in the business today, it's not what everybody thinks that it is. It might not be the greatest experience buying a car, like going to Disneyland or something, but the negative stereotypes that we've seen from the very beginning of the car business, 50s, 60s, 70s, still persist today, and it is a shame.
I don't think they're earned, Dave. For many years, I developed many relationships with my retail customers, as I'm sure you have.
Yes.
I've been out of retail for 8 or 9 years now with CarChat24, and I still get the call, I don't want to say every week, but certainly once a month from one of these customers asking,
especially
right,
family members as well. Where can I go? I need a
of course,
referral, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. Where do I go for this make, whatever.
Yeah.
But I still get friends, family, and many of them that are old customers that go in the friends category. But here's the problem I have with the dealership stereotype or the car guy stereotype. Now, have there been some rogues in the business? Yes. Has there been some rogues in the insurance business or in the television ministry business? Of course. So we can't say that the car business has the market cornered on loose cannons or rogues or bad guys. But the thing I believe is that the car business has probably been one of the most honest and transparent businesses since the beginning of time. I was never not out about that I'm here to get whatever I can for that car that you're looking at, and that I'm here to buy your trade as right as I can so that I can sell it and make something on it later, because I'm going to have to fix it up. I'm going to have to advertise it. I'm going to have to deal with the next person that's also going to have a trade and need me to warranty it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I need to make money, not hiding that in any way.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We're all out. We're all out and transparent about it. So even though some of them liken it to a rug bazaar or something, in Morocco, and I guess trading bothers some people, and that's probably got something to do with it. But I think the time investment bothers them too, because when I know I need a phone or my phone's broken or an upgrade, and I know I'm going to go take a number at T-Mobile and stay in there 45 minutes, and then the brain damage of transferring your stuff, and I don't look forward to that either. So since I can't think like a retail customer, because I've never not been I've been going to a dealership with my dad since I'm 8, and I started selling cars at George D. Baker's Countryside Autorama at US 19 and Sunset Point when I was...
I know exactly where that's at. Yes, absolutely.
I think after second period in high school, when I had enough credits, instead of going to 31 Flavors or where everyone else, I started selling cars, which was to my demise because I started doing too well to think about school, which is what happens to a lot of guys that start early. So, and then my first franchise store, 21, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I would tell customers we're out about it, because when you go to your bank and they hit you with points and you've got a good score and you don't want to pay and you walk, they knock the points off.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to CVS Drugs and they have Tylenol proudly displayed for $11.95, but if you've got this other guy's coupon,
they'll give it
for
to you.
$7.95. They're happy to match it, but they're willing to let you pay the $12 if not.
Yeah. Same thing today.
So,
you go to Best Buy, go buy a TV. If you can find it less expensive on Amazon, they're going to match that price.
But more important, if you don't, they won't.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make them bad people. And I've always been about it. Doesn't make me a bad person or dealers bad people. because they're going to try to make something on you or on the car. The car business is interesting. People invest directly in businesses. Like if I became your partner or you became my partner, we're a direct investor, or we invest through the stock market, whatever. And when you're an investor, you're looking for your third quarter profits, or you're looking for your distribution or whatever. But in the car business, when someone makes something, that's called ripoff.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So the Vroom can kiss my what. I actually, regardless of whether the car business earned its reputation or not, I'm just here to tell you that every other business there is has tried to. When I go to my dentist, they try to rust and dust me with 28 things.
Oh, I know they do. Yeah, absolutely. It's not cheap.
And they go to, I believe, a car business type seminar. The way they menu you, the way they hit you on the way out, the way they. I mean, it's like they're catching up.
There's so much innovation. Yeah. Go ahead.
And when the shit was hitting the fan, I can't remember. We're live, so you can't bleep that. Bleep it on the recorded. Sorry. So, but when the shit was hitting the fan, and I'm trying to think of which recession, let's say the last, after the home, 15 years ago, the home bubble burst and all that business.
Yeah. How could
I remember that
ago,
Home Depot, because there was no construction sales, there was no wood sale. They were moving towards the model of negotiating, find out what the customer will pay and negotiate a deal. And all I was saying is they're catching up. Now,
there's been so much innovation in the car business when it comes to selling, to sales training, and entrepreneurship in the automotive industry. It really can be kind of a test bed or an innovation bed that can, and that does, kind of leach out to other industries. To your point.
Yes. So anyway, I mean, you can tell look, I've always been proud to be in the car business. I got into it intentionally. It wasn't an accident. It was what I wanted to do. So also, therefore, I made it my craft and read, God knows, a couple hundred sales books, it's related, right? And made it my craft. And knock wood, did very well in it. You did very well in it. It wasn't an accident. But I've never not been proud of it. I mean, you'll notice there's some car guys that they'll go to a party and they won't tell people what they're doing or where they work. Which you've been a boss, so that makes you crazy. How can someone buy from you if they don't know what you do and where you work?
Yep. Everybody should know. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's start there. But also, Davey, look, have I ever been in an adversarial situation with a customer? Of course. Has it been my fault at times? I'm sure of it. I'd like to think that I've never lied or been crooked, but I've certainly tried someone's patience or not jibe with their style or their dream or them or their wanting to control the situation, not matching how I'm doing it or whatever. And it's not always right. It's chemistry. It's not always a love connection. Listen, on split deals, I'm sure you've done it. I've had a customer come in and I've had to hide in the bathroom while they're there so they can deal with someone else. We've all had to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But I've always been very, very proud in defense of this business and out about it. And I believe that I've done my part as an evangelist to educate the public on why what we're doing is okay. And it's okay to ask window, and it's okay to offer wholesale for their trade-in, et cetera, for the obvious reasons. And I don't need to educate the dealers that are watching this. By the way, dealers, I'm a chat vendor, so relax. I know it's kind of weird. You're used to dealing with your auto trader rep reprimanding you for what you're doing that never stole a car before. So at least,
it is crazy that they do that too. How many people lampoon this industry, even from within the industry? I think Carfax is a very good example. They had something that was kind of funny a few years ago when they started with the you want the car mats. Oh, you want a car map? Oh, you're looking for car flaps. Oh no, you want the car fox, and then they kind of landed on that whole car fox thing. But them, when they have customers that are car dealers, I mean that's how they make a living. That's where they get their money from. But then in their commercials, they're making fun of them. So I mean it's interesting that even the stereotypes will go from people that have car dealers as customers.
Well, and we have a segment of society. I mean, obviously, we were talking about Vroom, but Vroom, Carvana, whatever. And then I know in certain pockets, I mean, I know there's one price stores patched around the country. I know I ran converted a store to one price and took
Yep, me
training
too.
from Mullinax Ford. Okay, on the other coast. And but I know, like in pockets, I know you're from what, Minnesota or Wisconsin?
Minnesota,
Yeah, and aren't
North
there
Dakota.
pockets
Yep.
in that area where there's a large culture of one price stores?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Minneapolis. I don't know if they still are, but there was they had a large dealership group up there that was. Yes.
And look, I'm all for one price for the speed of transaction, and I like the idea of an enclave of dealers, everybody doing it, because I think the reason Saturn worked was because they educated the consumer through the tier 1 and 2 advertising that here's what's going to happen. Otherwise, what happens in a one price situation? Well, look, a certain segment's going to Vroom, a certain segment's going to Carvana. I'm not saying it's not growing. I'm not trying to be like, a caveman or anything, but it's still a
Right.
super small, market share. It's still a super small
Very.
piece at the moment. And it could be trending to more. I would actually guess that it's going to trend more, but there's a lot of people that, in my opinion, will take the risk of lower quality, certainly not able to inspect. They don't have new car franchises yet, so they certainly aren't getting pick of the litter, cream of the crop trade in. They're getting the stuff that a dealer's, let's face it, I mean, calling a spade, rejecting. Is that fair or not?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
and I don't want to sit here. Yep.
No, what's great about that conversation, and that's really where I really get passionate about it. And before I get there, I just wanted to share with you. So my story is very similar to yours. My dad was in the car business in the 60s. He was selling Toyotas in the early 70s, and if I remember correctly, he was number 11 or 13 in volume. So he's a very successful, Toyota salesperson way back then, and was running dealerships throughout the 80s. When I was 8, 10, 12 years old, I was, sweeping up, showroom floors, and then got into the business in my early 20s, and then I've never left. I've been on both sides, the dealership side and the vendor side. But talking about CarMax, and the reason I kind of did that little backstory right there, or talking about, one price, Carvana. So Modern Dealer Podcast, about a year ago, we did an episode on Carvana and did a bunch of research around the customer experience and why customers chose to do business with Carvana. And I have not done this in quite some time, but I believe that what we found out then is also true today, is that we think about customers that are going to Carvana because it's easy, it's online, they don't have to deal with salespeople, they have a huge selection to choose from. It sounds like a very good place to start your car shopping experience. But what we found, and you can do your research yourself, you go to YouTube, you go to Carvana, there's a ton of online reviews of the Carvana experience, and almost every single time, the way that the process worked is a customer would go to their local dealer, they would look at vehicles, they would test drive vehicles, they would shop one dealership against another, and then if they either had a bad experience or they didn't quite find the vehicle that they were looking for, they would go home and then they would go to Carvana. So it wasn't like it was the customer's first choice to go to Carvana. It was a second choice. And I know that you spent a lot of time as a used vehicle manager. I spent a lot of time as a used vehicle manager. And when you're dealing with used cars versus new cars, there isn't a new car factory, or at least there wasn't a used car factory back in the 90s, right? And if somebody came in and I said, I'm looking for, a 6-year-old Corolla, and I want it with white, but I really want to have the beige interior. What you had to do was sell them a Camry that was black, that had a gray interior, because that's what you had on the lot. you didn't have the
Right.
opportunity to go to Carvana that has 18,000 vehicles in stock, and they probably have a white one with a beige interior. So I think the model of where I believe that a lot of people think that the Carvana business model is very interesting and people are going there first. I think what actually is happening is people are going to dealers, not finding what they want or not liking the experience. And as a secondary step, they're going to Carvana.
Okay, well, they're certainly getting educated up. And
Yes.
in when you read the review, I understand they like the experience, but have you noted anything about car quality or not? If you don't know, I know I'm catching you flat-footed.
No, absolutely. That's what I love about doing a live broadcast here is that I mean it just is a conversation. So what we also did find out is that the average reconditioning time that Carvana spends on a vehicle was like 3 hours. Now you think about that. What are you going to get in 3 hours to go through a shop, through cleanup, to get to a car to a front line? You're going to get a poor quality used vehicle. What repairs that need to be done takes time to get the parts for the repairs. I mean, invariably, most vehicles that come in as used car inventory is going to need some sort of repair. So what I saw in the research that I did, a lot of them were missing mats, they were missing pieces. The quality was just not the same as the quality of a used car that I, as a used vehicle manager, would be putting on my front line. And they would be delivering these cars to customers, which actually brings me up to one other point about Carvana that a lot of people complained about, and that is even though their photo booth process to be able to market these cars on the internet is pretty cool, where they bring the car in, they have this big sphere that they take photos. But the photos that they take are intentionally blurry. And the reason they're doing that is because they're going to point out all the nicks, the damage, the scratches in the photos, which I think is great, which is something that they learned from the real retail, right? The regular car dealership retail. That's a good thing to do, to be able to point out what needs to be done. But it seems to me that the photos are intentionally a little bit blurry, not true 4K or 1080p photos. So the customers are kind of getting a false sense of quality when they're actually seeing the vehicles.
I actually resent your problem with that, because that's how I like photos of me.
Yeah, there you go. Intentionally blurry to kind of add like a photoshopped effect.
I like to do what I call the Bordeaux shots of myself. So,
there you go.
Whatever they're called with the opaque. So, okay. But I also want to I want to put something out there if anyone is still watching. The independent dealer. I made a statement that Carvana doesn't have a new car franchise, so they can't get cream of the crop trade-ins, because they're buying what dealers are rejecting. But I want to be clear.
Yes, exactly.
I grew up on an independent lot, and my dad did not deal in, I'm sure there was a junky car here and there, but, did not deal in junk. And I deal with a lot of independent dealers now, and I'm friends with a lot of independent dealers. And I literally just got my investment out of a store that I've been an investor in for over 20 years.
Awesome.
And the guy's just bullets, as far as integrity and the way he sets a car up. But you, the independent dealer, know your niche, know your market, know the kind of cars you're dealing with, know how to set them up. It's not a volume machine like Dave's talking about. You can actually do something with it and maybe make a decision on what to keep and not keep. I think that Carvana's, and maybe we should get off Carvana and everything, but I think their appetite for inventory is so heavy that they would probably take stuff that either you wouldn't take. And then to Dave's point about the 3-hour recon, at my last store, I couldn't even get a car looked at in the report in 3 hours.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
If you included a
you
cleanup,
measure the recon
definitely
cycle
not.
in days.
Right, that's right. Of
Which you
course,
should.
of
And
course, that was always the tension between the used car manager and the service manager. Right, was
yep.
how many days to get one ready. So,
Yep.
but I wanted to make sure that I'm giving legitimate, not like a politician, but legitimate respect to the independent dealer. That was not a shot at you if you don't have a franchise generating your own trades.
Absolutely. So I was an independent used car dealer as well, back in from 92 to 96, in Pinellas Park, over in that area there. And we dealt with inexpensive cars. So we were a buy here, pay here. So I have that used vehicle buy here, pay here experience there for 4 or 5 years. Very interesting business. And a lot of it does have to do with the reconditioning. And what's really interesting about the reconditioning on a buy here, pay here is that you're living with these customers after you sell them a vehicle. They're going to be coming back every couple of weeks to make their payment. To make their payment. And it was really up to you, the dealer, to make sure that car continues to run. Because that's one thing that we know. The customers will not be making payments if the car's not running. So that's a little bit different. So,
this is not an interview. This is an authentic recorded conversation, because if we were sitting around a meal or whatever, of course I didn't know anything about your AR lot background. So when I was running this when I was running this Cadillac Land Rover store, and we decided to take on this Rolls and Bentley franchise, this would have been your era. We bought it from a buy here, pay here lot that was also Rolls and Bentley. Are you familiar?
Wow. No, I was not. That's kind of amazing, isn't it?
So it was Bennett Auto Sales. Everybody rides.
Yes, I do remember now. Yep, absolutely.
So
they
had Rolls and Bentley. So, when we were looking at the franchise, and they'd sold, by the way, one new car in 3 years. I mean, that was their. So they sold a point.
And that's one that was there's an old Barnett Bank building or something on corner of US 19 and Clearwater.
It was a bank.
Glass, right?
Glass. Yeah, It was a bank. So the story, I don't know this to be 100% accurate, but I mean, I do know that the genealogy of the franchise is accurate. That it was originally at the Lincoln Mercury store in St. Petersburg called Scarrett, and they had Rolls Royce.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then Bennett, everybody rides, buy here, pay here, at this bank building repurposed that you mentioned, near Loki Mercedes, I think, up in that area. Okay. Or now Mercedes, they just sold. So now Mercedes of Clearwater, I think.
Oh, but actually, I did not know that.
Yep. And, and you, okay. One of the partners there. Okay. So we won't go into that.
Right.
So, apparently, Bennett from Buy Here, Pay Here used to work at Scarrett. And I don't know if he got fired or got sideways, but he had some ego reason to buy the Rolls-Royce franchise off of his last employer, the Lincoln Mercury store. So when we get the franchise. I mean, we got people sitting in the lobby in this gorgeous glass bank building with like a pond fountain bridge going in. I mean, really knocked out, like going into a Hyatt. And, you'd have the people sitting there waiting in line to make their payment. I mean, I don't want to be derogatory, but it was almost like people waiting with like a chicken in a crate next to them.
Yeah.
And, and the Rolls and the Bentley, Bentley Continental T in the back. Anyway, it was a crazy setup. That's awesome. Garyvee content. I mean, it's your show to run, but I'm dying to tell you about some of the people that, by the way, you're hearing it. You're hearing it here first. I haven't even launched the website yet. We haven't even gotten it to the audio only iTunes yet. I've just been putting out on social media a little promo teaser, just a little clip from each one. But I'm blessed, lucky, and the gratitude is, and that term gets thrown around a lot. But remember, I had been, truth be told, I got divorced, right around when I started with CarChat. So 8-9 years ago, that was a total shocker and total traumatized over the experience for my kids. And I just went to work became available for my sons, went kind of reclusive, on top of not being the best maintainer of friends because of retail hours, but because we would have someone over for dinner every couple of weeks and have a party at the house a few times a year, or show up when you're invited to a party. That's how we'd stay in touch. But I wasn't good at calling my top 10 or 15 people to say, hi, how you're doing, right? So to make the calls to do this podcast has been a great exercise because I was very, very nervous. Like, just like the salesman, you know, you got behind on your CRM. You haven't called your customer in 10 years. Now you got to see how they're doing. You got to wonder if they traded 6 times since I've talked to them. But I'm very excited. I have a dear friend named Warren Brown, who I actually didn't meet through the car business, but he rented a waterfront vacation house that I had 4 or 5 years in a row from Traverse City, Michigan. He's a retired General Motors executive. So, of course, the first year he was there, I didn't get to know him. I'm just like, if you need anything, I'm over here. If I could tell you where anything is in the neighborhood, anywhere to eat, let me know. If you didn't want to use the paddle boards, I'll give you a lesson. They're out on the dock, you know, that sort of thing. And I think maybe the second time he came, we became friendly because it was like reunion week. Now he's coming back for 5 weeks. And we sit around and I find out he's in the car business. He finds out I'm in the car business and we exchange a few stories. So then over the years, there you go.
Warren Brown, right? Okay, there you go.
Be a professional pool player when I was 15. I never went to high school. So he was working there for a month. I would go to the pool hall during the day for the whole day, but he had to work. Okay. So he wouldn't come in till 6 o'clock at night. And every night he'd come in and say, Warren.
Did you shut that off intentionally?
There. No, I just a little preview there because I want to cut you off.
Well, that little, no, he's more entertaining than I listen, we went on for just like this, we went on for 4.5 hours. Don't worry, folks. It's about an hour and 45-minute cut into 2 parts, distilled conversation. But I was freaking riveted. I mean, what he was talking about there is he was a pool hustler for a living. He's already got a kid. He was a D- student. He beat Minnesota Fats, by the way. And he was literally making about $500 a week, $500 a week, hustling pool, when his buddy gets a job at GM making $0.05 a month in the mailroom, and his buddy wants him to work there. And when when he says, how much can you make? And the friend says $500, and he's like, a month? Like, he couldn't even think of it. But he ends up applying for the job because he promised that he would. He gets the job. He's a mail boy. He gets to know everyone. He gets to be liked a little. He becomes a senior mail boy. So now he's delivering the newspapers to the executive offices. So we're talking about Stemple, Roger Smith, DeLorean. I mean, these people. That's awesome. And he ends up getting rapport. And even though he was a D- student, he obviously wasn't an idiot because he actually became an analyst for GM on what it would cost to build a car or how many cars should actually sell. And now he's a professional pool player.
Sorry.
No, I can stop talking when Warren starts. Well, so anyway, in the end, and it's well worth watching. And I don't mean because it's mine. I mean, I was if you're into the car business at all, Warren ended up being the guy that planned and found and negotiated for and dealt with the government and all the logistics and the glass and steel and unions to build the General Motors plant in Russia.
Amazing.
I mean, it's a movie. It's a movie.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, when you talk about the bribery and and the oligarchs and, whatever, anyway, it's amazing.
Yeah. So that's Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars. I'm saying that, Connected Through Cars, your new podcast. And as you said, you have that on YouTube right now. You have a few snippets out there, and I think you're planning on releasing these full episodes in the coming weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah, hopefully in the next 1 to 2 weeks, let's just say 2 weeks for a deadline, we'll have the site up. We'll have them on the audio only. They're already on the YouTube. 8 of them are on the YouTube channel.
Okay, great.
So you can
and we're going to link that
now.
up for anybody that's interested. Please check that out. We're going to link it up down below. This after we are live. So
now, are you cutting me off that I can't run down a few more of the highlight?
No,
people here?
please. Oh, I wanted to keep this at an hour, so we got 7 minutes left. Go ahead. Let's do this, man.
Well, why don't you just tell me that? I wouldn't, introducing myself usually takes an hour. So I'm very excited. I have Derrick Bell, who won Le Mans 5 times, who went to the debut of Ford versus Ferrari. in Paris and met with Matt Damon and all those guys because he won Le Mans 5 times. He won. It's not called Rolex. It's called Rolex now, but he won SunTrust 24 a couple of times. He worked with Steve McQueen on the film Le Mans. He talks about all of this. I have a kid, Brett Ramker, who's an Emmy Award-winning videographer who traveled with NASCAR and IMSA WeatherTech and Michelin, and been to Goodwin and Monaco, and been all over the world, and filmed for the Torque Show, and just did a full-length feature film called Best in Class, The Making of a Concorde d'Elegance, about the Audrain Concorde up there. I've got the #1 exotic car leasing guy in the nation, with all the stories related from a ride and drive event where all 4 Bentleys got wrecked when he had all the people already traveled out to Vegas. I mean, he's got story. I've just last night did one of these, but it's not out yet, with Malcolm Bricklin, and Malcolm Bricklin was the father of Subaru, and how he was renting scooters went to Japan to get automatic transmission scooters so that he could insure them, so that he could rent them, bumps into Subaru. It's a long, very interesting story with a lot of scare in there. The Bricklin automobile from 74 to 76, and some of the perils. I mean, it's another literal movie, how he'd hired John DeLorean to be president of that, and then ended up ungetting together with DeLorean, mainly over about whose name was going to go on the back of the car, and then his advice to DeLorean afterwards, all of which, including where he built it, the gull wing doors, all went into the DeLorean. I have one of my old exotic car salespeople with all the stories, including him sticking his hand through a window to start a Lotus, a lease for someone to get it started. He thought it was a neutral. It reverses, crashes at an event. A woman wanting to buy one of 3. There was 100 Enzos made, or 140 Enzos. I forget the worldwide number, but 3 were black. 3 Enzos ever made were black. And he was dealing with a woman that would only have a white car, and how he talked her into a black car. It's a classic story, and lots of stuff like that. I've got Alan Morin, who was on the originating team of the DuPont Registry Cars and Coffee, and then ran Boulevard Customs. They did all the celebrity exotic car customization, and did a Mercedes-sponsored SEMA car, and now works at the Tampa Bay Car Museum. I got Vinny Russo, who's an exotic car, supercar restoration guy. I mean, these are the people. If you're into it, very, very. Oh, and forgive me, and the customers. I got the founder of Red Lobster. I've got St. Elmo Steakhouse in Indianapolis, where all the races are. And he's got a half a dozen exotics in his garage. So through the business, whether it be factory people, racing people, customers, dealers, whatever, this is who we're talking to. So hopefully we won't run out of material.
Yeah, I would say
you can tell I'm not excited. You could tell I'm not
exactly.
into it.
Well, I tell you, I think it was a year ago or so that we first started talking about potentially putting this podcast together, and you've had this idea for a long time, being able to connect with these people that you've met and you've developed a relationship with over the years, and it's an interesting relationship that you've been able to build based on your specific experience. Being with Rolls-Royce and being with Bentley and Ferrari, and being able to connect with these people over the years. I think it's fantastic. I don't know who else would be able to put this collection of people together. So if anybody is, a fan of automobiles, a fan of the car industry, and being able to hear these stories, really is absolutely fantastic. So congrats to you. I'm excited to be able to sit back and to listen to these stories and learn as you are, right from the horse's mouth.
Oh, and you can't stop me because it's live, but you could always edit me out later. I mean, I just don't want to forget the guys that are, because the people that did it for me. I mean, they're enjoying it too, but they're doing me a favor to come on and make the time. But I've got the general manager of Rolls-Royce, who was employee #1 for Rolls-Royce when BMW bought him, and in the middle of that whole debacle with Volkswagen and BMW fighting over it, and the inside story. And you want to listen to the end where he deals with Mike Tyson on Phantom #1, and the story's as cold out. He's barefoot, and there's a tipped over barbecue on his front porch. And I also have a Bentley, Lotus, Ferrari XVP, and you'll want to listen to that, how he got an Esprit rotating at highway speed. I mean, these are how fast in a Countach, how fast in a Veyron, driving across in a frozen lake near the border of Russia for speed. Someone taking delivery of Maserati bi-turbo, raining out. Of course, turbos in the old days used to really kick. And the guy in the first 3 seconds rotates, and wedges into the entrance of a car wash.
Oh,
and it took tow trucks to unwedge it. I mean, these are the stories. So you're going to want to listen.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, I tell you what, this has been absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I wanted to try to keep this around an hour. We're at 59 minutes and 58 seconds. So Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars, available on YouTube, available on Apple Podcasts. It's going to be available on his website. We're going to link everything up down below. I appreciate you spending some time with me today. Enjoy your Tarpon Springs tap. I'm going to go get myself another dark roast myself.
And remember, sponsored by CarChat on this side, because I'm in his office. He helped me out with the equipment. I'm breathing his air conditioning right now, and I haven't been calling customers for the last hour. So God forbid, can you send a customer?
Exactly. For Jeff and David, that's a wrap.